Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 41 of Ben and Nate's Questions That We Ask Massage Therapists on the Internet. I am one half of your host, Nathan Paul Fay, licensed massage therapist, osteopath, and seminar instructor extraordinaire. Take it away, Mr. Ben.
Going with the middle names even. Wow. I like it.
Just going to throw it all out there.
I love it. Well, if you don't know me by now, because that means you haven't been listening, but my name is Ben. I'm a massage therapist of over 20 years. I'm also a massage therapy educator.
Yes.
Yes. Just got my approval, my NCB-TMB provider approval. Got that in the mail last week. I consider what I do to be rooted in curiosity, community, and a passion for learning. That's one of my big passions is learning. So I learn so I can share, and I love to share with everyone so that we can all grow and evolve in this ever-evolving profession called massage therapy. Thanks for joining us. Welcome to episode 41.
Hey, Ben, a hearty congratulations on getting that NCB approval. I know that you worked hard on that, and it's certainly a long process. So that must have been pretty exciting getting that news.
The whole process of putting it together. I mean, I've had it written for years, but submitting it and the whole process of getting it approved was confusing because their system works okay, but they don't notify you when changes need to be made, or at least I didn't get notified. But it only took a few months only, but here I am now. I have my own provider number, so be looking for classes in the near future. I'm going to look at premiering some of these classes in September, October, and November.
Ben, I think in 2026 I smell a 2-day Matt course and a 1-day Ben course. So a 3-day weekend of action-packed Nate and Ben seminar, something like that.
Ooh, you heard it here first on Ben and Nate's Questions We Ask Massage Therapists on the Internet. Look for that in your area soon.
So what else is going on?
Oh man, I tell you what, we are coming off of this 2-week heat wave or so that they've been calling it in the Midwest, the heat dome. Humidity levels at about 96, 98%. Heat indexes of about 110, 111, which I don't really know what a heat index is. I guess it's if you were to take humidity out of the equation, it would be what the actual air temperature is. But I complain about the weather a little bit. But all the while, the people down in Florida are going, "Oh, that's cute." Like they live this every day. Like you've been to Florida, you know what the weather's like.
Well, I think Oma, I think you're sending it our way because we're starting to venture into this heat dome thing this week. But hey, you don't have to shovel it.
Don't have to shovel it, no.
That's
We
right.
also have this phenomenon in the Midwest called corn sweat. Did I tell you about this?
You have never told me about corn sweat.
So we are in peak corn sweat season, which
Ooh.
means as the crops start to dry out, they release a lot of humidity, and that adds to the already humid air. So that's why we have levels of 96, 98% humidity. All thanks to the
Wild.
corn sweat.
Ben, this is a learning show, and I learned something tonight. Speaking of corn, we just had sweet corn is officially in season, and just officially had my first piece of sweet corn the other night, and it's my favorite time of year.
Yeah. I mean, we just drive around and pull off the road and grab an ear and then just go home, because it's right there everywhere. I can throw a rock and hit a cornfield.
I love it.
What's new with you, man? What's been going on? What's been going well?
Well, I signed the lease on my new space, and so it's official. I'm officially announcing that my practice is moving about 2 miles down the road. I'll be in a different town, so there's going to be a lot to do in terms of switching over my DBA and all the things that sort of go along with moving. Ben, I was not intending to move my practice when I built Hazardville Wellness out 10 years ago. that was going to be my final stop for the rest of my career. But man, I'll tell you, I learned a lot along the way. And landlords and leases are a very important thing to have some knowledge and expertise on. And I learned a lot. And unfortunately, I had too many external problems with my office and a pretty lax landlord.
Yeah,
And
so you have to
yeah,
rename your business. You can't keep it Hazardville.
I'm gonna keep it Hazardville because I'm so branded,
Yeah.
on the Googles and everything else, and that's how people know me. So it is what it is. At the end of the day, it's just a name,
Yeah.
and it'll be, I'm sure that I'll hear, "Oh, you're not in Hazardville anymore," but I guess the way I look at it, it's my roots, it's my practice, and it'll be with me to stay.
Yeah.
So
Well,
all good.
cool. New beginnings. You get to reinvent yourself if you want to.
That's true. Now's the time to do it. And most importantly, I get to buy a lot of new things for my new office. And I haven't had any good tax deductions in a long time. So I think this is going to be a good tax deduction year.
Excellent.
Yeah, looking forward to that.
Yeah, cool. Well, we're staring down the barrel of episode 41. We have a goal to make it to 50 episodes by the end of 2025. I think we can make that pretty easily.
Easy,
Yeah.
easy.
Um so, I like to start us off with some fun before we get into the serious
I'm
business.
ready.
All right. I got a couple. I'm going to throw a couple at you and we'll see. We'll see if any of these land. First one is, who is Thor's favorite singer? So Thor, the superhero Thor with the hammer.
Who, who is? I know who you're talking about. Who
Okay.
is Thor's favorite singer?
MC Hammer.
Love it. Good
Please,
one.
please, Hammer, don't hurt him. All right. How about this one?
I'm
I'm going
ready.
back to Thor again. What is
Okay.
Thor's favorite day of the week?
What is Thor's favorite day of the week?
Thor's Day.
Love it.
It's in between Wednesday and Friday.
So, Ben, why the superhero jokes tonight?
That's a good question, but I got one more for you.
More.
Hey, they
Excellent.
gotta come in groups of three, right? I'm gonna go to Spider-Man, and I'm gonna go with what is the Green Goblin's favorite band?
What is the Green Goblin's favorite band?
Smashing Pumpkins.
Amazing.
So that probably won't land with people that don't know much about superheroes and Spider-Man. I don't know much about Spider-Man, but I remember the Green Goblin from the comic book days.
I took a poll, not to get off track here already, but that's what you and I like to do sometimes. So
It's our show.
I
We do
took
what we want.
we do what we want. I took a poll last week. So the median age of my practice or my clientele last week, I had 3 clients under the age of 30 that I saw last week. So I had 27, 18, and 16. So my questions to them were, did they know who Ozzy Osbourne was?
Ooh.
27-year-old knew of him. The 18-year-old had no idea. 16-year-old had heard of him only because of an influencer that she listens to on Instagram. Next question was, did you know who Hulk Hogan was? 27-year-old knew. 18-year-old, he's a wrestler, right? 16-year-old didn't have a clue.
Yeah.
So then Malcolm Jamal Warner, who was like our big brother in the 80s, Theo Huxtable,
Yeah.
and of course, 40 something years later, I'll never forget the Gordon Gartrell episode, one of my favorite episodes. And of course, that was absolutely not. And then, of course, I explained to them TV and sitcom in the 80s when it was 8 o'clock, and man, you just ran to the television. And if you had to go to the bathroom during the commercial or get a snack, you ran and ran back. And
You
that's how
got
it
2 to 3
was.
minutes tops.
Yeah. But what most people didn't know was that Malcolm Jamal Warner was a very accomplished bass player.
Nice.
So a lot of people, I don't think too many people really knew that unless they were bass nerds like me. So anyway, some sad losses in the world over the last week, and it just pretty interesting that the young people did not know the questions and did not know the answers. Who are they? Who were they? Didn't have a clue.
It's tough because it reminds us how old we are. Like I think of Hulk Hogan as just like 20 years ago, but that was the 80s.
Right.
And now
But it's so weird though, because I mean, again, my parents' generation, I was very much aware of who the Big Bopper was and Buddy Holly and Elvis Presley and that kind of stuff. So it's interesting. I don't know. Maybe parents aren't doing as good of a job as our parents did. Who knows?
we talked about this in the past, and before the internet came to be as we know it now, like you mentioned, you're forced to watch, if you want to watch TV, you have to be there. You know what's going on.
Yeah.
If you're gonna, you're watching TV, you're listening to the radio, you don't get to pick what songs you want to listen to like you do with Spotify or other, services like that. You had to listen to the radio and wait for your favorite song to come on. And with your fingers by the
We get
record button, hoping that the DJ wouldn't talk it through the intro to the song.
right.
Now people can just pick up the internet and go, "Hey, play this song, do
I
this."
know.
It's
I know it.
it's a whole different world.
Yeah, it sure is. So, but I'm happy to say that my 15-year-old knew who Ozzy and knew who Hulk was.
Yeah,
So I felt like I did something right.
there you go.
So what do we got tonight? Do we have a question or what?
We do have a question, and going back to those jokes that I threw out there, it's got to do with superpower. So
Ah,
I will read it in its entirety. It's kind of a long one.
I'm
So
ready.
the question that you can find on Ben and Nate's questions we ask people on the internet Facebook page, it reads: every massage therapist has their own unique strength or massage superpower. What's yours? Is it intuitive touch, a calming presence, exceptional listening skills, or something else entirely? Tell us about your massage superpower and how it makes your sessions special.
I love it. I love that question.
It's a good question, and I'm going to tell you part of what inspired it was uh, I changed business locations 2.5 years ago. I sold my practice, the multi-therapist practice, and went solo again. And I was coming up with I needed a business card because who doesn't need business cards, right? Here's my card. Here's my card. And I was using Canva. Are you familiar with Canva? It's a
Yeah.
editing, photo editing app, that kind of thing. And I don't know, they were promoting some type of competition, sort of like create a superhero themed business card or superhero
Mhm.
themed somehow to advertise your business. I'm like, you know what? I'll play around with that. So I came up with this little icon of me with a cape on, a little animated, I don't know, little GIF thing. And I made this little superhero business card, and that's kind of what inspired it. So if you go and look at benstonemassagetherapy.com, you'll see this little picture. But that's what inspired this. It made me think about, what do people consider to be their superpower? Because we all have different kinds of superpowers in our life. What's our superpower as a dad, as a massage therapist, as a husband, as a whoever. So that's what inspired this.
Well, I love it. And probably most of our clients that have been seeing us for a long time think we're superheroes anyway, right?
Yeah, they'll say things like,
You're magical.
yeah, how did you know where that spot was at?
How did you do that? I don't know what you do, but you amaze me every time. Those are things that I regularly hear. And Man, I didn't have my fit. Yeah, kind of like you said, man, I was feeling pretty good today and I didn't know that area of my body was bothering me. How did you know that? So that's
Yeah.
probably the most common one that we hear.
Do we have any responses on our web page?
We sure do.
Yeah.
Of
I don't know
course
if
we
we want to
do.
get into those first or
Yeah,
if we,
let's just do it. Let's just
okay.
do it. Let's talk about what people talked about.
Yeah.
I love this one because I think that some people think about massage as, right, like being calming. You and I talked about music before, like what type of music do you play in your practice? And I play like a lot of crossover, folk, country, blues, sometimes some rock and roll, things like that. My clients know that about me. And I wouldn't exactly say that's like a calming presence, right?
Yeah.
And I love that somebody said, "Well, I definitely don't bring a quiet presence to the practice." But she talked about how, learning continuously, bringing a lot of different things to the practice, and can relate to people because she's also experienced a lot of injuries. So not afraid to think about outside the box. I love that. I think that's a total superpower, and just being able to not get contained into one thing. But she also said my weakest strength is a calming relaxation style massage, and totally relatable for me. And
Yeah.
we have another question out there about style of massage that you're not good at. We'll talk about that next week. But I can't wait to talk about that because just like that, I can't do a relaxation massage to save my life. And listening, man, so Scott Poe talked about listening, right? Listening without interruption. And how many times have you been to a practitioner where you start to tell your story and they're already assuming, oh, I know exactly what's wrong with you. And it's like that's like a total bummer. So being able to listen to somebody and listen to their whole story and be patient, I think that takes a lot of I think that's a big superpower.
Yeah, did you bring this up? I don't remember who said it, but I've heard this several times. On average, when you go to see your doctor, you get about 17 seconds before you're interrupted and they
Yeah.
tell you what's wrong with you.
Yeah, I've heard different numbers and I've been writing this book that I swear to God is going to come out before I'm 110 years old.
Yeah.
And it's all about the art of listening and patient care. And yeah, so the first chapter, the first few sentences, I talk about that. So I ask the reader for 15 seconds to just pause and then write down what you hear in that 15 seconds in your room, whether it's ambient noise, a bird chirping outside, and how much can you tune into, in that 15-second time. And then realizing what a that's a short amount of time, but they can also feel like a long time too. But that's a different podcast. So, but it's certainly a superpower to be able to do that.
That is a superpower. It makes me think about also in communication, most people can't go longer than about 12 to 15 seconds of silence. They have to break
Uh,
the silence.
have to say something. So it's interesting so far, Ben, in the responses that you and I are talking about. Nobody mentioned my superpower is my touch, and that's our main gig, right? Our main gig is supposed to be touch therapy,
Yeah, why do you think
and,
that is?
and nobody mentioned that.
I know we've talked about this in the past, but I'm under the impression that the work that we do with our hands is the least important thing we do.
Yeah,
But also, it's very important. Like this is where the information that we're inputting into the system comes from our
yeah,
hands.
for sure. It's an interesting thing. It's kind of like the seminar business, man. Like that you're into and that I'm into. And people always say, "How do you get to be a good seminar instructor?" And I've been my latest adventure, by the way, is to listen to TED Talks about how to become a better speaker. So I'm working on my own. I want to kind of feel like I want to improve on that. And it's just so interesting. All these speakers on TED Talk say the same thing. Content is like this much, and personality, your ability to draw an audience in, your ability to make the audience feel like they're your friend and they're actually part of the seminar and is most of it. And that's what I'm hearing across the board. And your knowledge of a subject is like that. And I've been saying that all along anyway. So when people say, how do you become a good seminar instructor? And I say, learn how to set up AV, learn what plugs into what, know a few good jokes, learn how to draw, 30 adults in for 16 hours and, teach a few good techniques.
Yeah. So it's said that about 60 to 80% of communication is nonverbal. So
Yeah.
the way that your face looks, your uh, the tone of your voice, the cadence of your voice, the inflection, how loud you talk and how soft you talk, all of
Right.
that translates into how much people really listen because they're listening to what it sounds like versus the words are already there. They know the words.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you knew this or not, but I actually have a degree in communications. So giving speeches doesn't mean that I'm good at it, but it means I went to school and I have the piece of paper that says, "Hey, I got a degree in communication studies."
See, all this stuff, Ben, and I'm just kind of learning this stuff over the last few years, but it's pretty interesting. And again, the superpower becomes that versus knowledge. The superpower becomes listening, thinking outside the box, being able to do a lot of different things. And you're a massage therapist, and nobody's talking about how amazing their touch is. So that's it's pretty fascinating.
I haven't thought about that. I'm wondering because it's so normal in what we do that we just don't even think about it like, well, duh, that's what I do. So we don't think about it as being one of our superpowers.
Well, it's right. And we talked earlier about all the things that people say to us every day. How did you know that was there? How did you find that? How did you know to go to that spot? Sometimes I'll start a session no matter what the person came in for. So, and sometimes I'll just start somewhere differently just to kind of bring them into it a little bit. And then I've had people say, how did you know to start there? I didn't even mention my neck or my arm or my foot. How did you know to start there? How did you know that I was having problems there and I didn't even mention it to you? And it's a pretty wild thing, but to go along with what you said, I think that we normalize it and it's just so part of our everyday that we just sort of shrug it off. No NBD, no big deal, right? Just doing my job.
Yeah,
Rain on a
normal.
Sunday. Sometimes I think our response should be maybe be better or different than it is because my response is, well, I just knew, and I'll talk them through maybe like a certain assessment I use whether it's a visual or a palpatory thing. But at that point, you're kind of speaking Greek to them. So sometimes I just like to be funny and I crack a little smile and I just say, man, I'm just that good,
Yeah.
and it make them laugh a little bit.
And a lot of times they point to where they hurt. And so it's like, I just say, well, you told me where it was at. You
Well,
pointed.
then there's that.
Yeah.
People don't realize their body language. I talked about this in Oklahoma during my lectures. Sometimes people will tell you their story as they're telling it to you, and they'll start to rub a certain spot on their body and kind of clue you in, which is great. I talked about neurodynamics, and they'll say, well, I have carpal tunnel, and they're rubbing the back of their hand. So they're already cluing you in that maybe something is completely different and something else is involved. So then back to that, then you go to do your assess and treatment, and they say, well, how did you know how to do that? And man, I back to what Scott said. Well, I listened to you. I watched your visual and verbal cues. So
Yeah, absolutely. And we clue into that. The difference between someone rubbing an area or pointing. That's a difference, and that's something that I didn't realize I had picked up on that until I read a paper that talked about that. Like when people are telling you their problems, is it an area? Is it a point? Is it
right.
just just throwing that out there for anyone that
Yeah,
little free info there for you.
I dig it. So what's
Well,
your superpower,
yeah,
buddy?
yeah, I knew you were gonna ask me
You
that.
knew I was going to ask you that.
Oh man. there's so many things that I want to be my superpower. You know, I want to have it all. I want people to feel safe. I want them to feel comfortable. I want them to feel that they can trust me. I want them, you know, all of that first. And then I want to be able to have the be good with the assessments. I'm still getting there. I mean, is anyone ever perfect with assessments? I don't know, maybe.
Mm.
But, you know, every time I see someone new, I get to bring in different assessments. I had, you know, someone in the other day where I got to do, you know, some compression tests to see if, you know, maybe her symptoms got worse as we were pushing down on her head, that kind of
Yeah.
thing. And so, you know, every day I get a chance to use more stuff, and there's so many. I feel like my superpowers, I just want to bring everything in, but I'm not there. And as I think about this, I'm going to ask you, what's your superpower?
Well, I just want to
If you
say
had to
too, I like what
narrow it down to one thing, what
I,
would be your superpower?
I do want to comment though, Ben, that I like what you're saying because it goes hand in hand with one of our distinguished listeners about thinking outside the box and always wanting to learn and grow. And I think that is a superpower, you know, never staying stagnant in our field and continuing to evolve. I've said this before, but one of my favorite compliments from lifetime clients is you never do the same thing twice. And I think that's a big superpower. But man, what is my superpower? I'm gonna be a little generic and honestly, I do get tickled every day, all day, that people tell me that people always say to me, "How did you know to find that?" And Eric Dalton, you know, did a cool little course a couple years ago called Pain Detectives. And that's been one of my responses to, you know, to people when they ask me that. I say, "Well, I'm a pain detective. That's what I'm doing, and that's what you've hired me to do." And I feel like that's kind of like the thing that I'm most good at. So I feel like that is a superpower, even though we've been dismissing it a little bit. I really feel like that's just an amazing skill that has taken a lifetime to develop. I think 21 years ago in massage school, when they put the hair in the phone book on page 400, and you had to feel the hair through page two and figure it out. And I remember feeling like, oh my God, there's something wrong with me. I can't find this hair on page 700. But now I feel like I could find that hair. And I think that's like a pretty cool party trick at this point. But if I could pick one more superpower that I think I have, and this took a long time to get there, but I love the fact that I can just be me in my treatment room. You know, I don't put on a character. I am who I am. And I truly think that people see us for different reasons, right? And people see us because they like us, they feel a connection to us, they feel listened to, we help them in some ways. And I think that we help people. I think sometimes we help people in ways that we don't realize that we're helping them, right? And I think that just cool connection that happens with my treatment room with every individual person, I think that's my superpower.
Well, you know, say Superman, he's got more than one superpower, right? He can fly, he's got super strength, he's, you know,
Yeah.
impervious to like bullets and stuff like that. So I mean, why can't we have several superpowers also as massage therapists?
X-ray vision.
Now, see, that would be that might be a question for the future, is like, what superpower would you like to have that, you know, is out of the realm of typical humans? But that would be a good one, right? To be able to see you know, I speaking of the x-ray vision, I had a client come in who had her hip replaced, and she wanted to show me the x-ray of her hip. And I'm looking at the x-ray of her hip, and I just happened to notice her tailbone, and her tailbone's crooked.
Hmm,
And I was like, oh, that's what we've been working on. So I got
very
to see
cool.
it. I got to see the x-ray vision of her hips, of her
Love it.
sacrum, actually. Yeah.
Very
Yeah,
cool.
just being observant.
Yeah.
I would say, I'm going to go back to my superpower. If I had to pick one, I would say that it is probably learning. I love to learn about anything. Like it's been photography. I mean, it's always been massage. Like I've got another continuing ed course coming up this weekend that I'll be attending, because that's what I do. I take one about every couple months, and I just love to learn. Even if I'm learning the same thing, I get to learn it on a deeper level, and then I get to share what I've learned with the people that I work with,
Yeah.
work with. We work with people. We don't
We
work
work
on
with
them.
people.
Yeah. And I get the opportunity to teach them what I've learned in a small little way. And I think just that little bit, even if they don't understand what I'm saying in terms of anatomy or physiology, but I think to know what is being done to their body can be really helpful.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that comes in the
I
part
dig it.
where I love to share what I've learned. So it's not just sharing with you or anyone else that's listening or people in the classes that I teach. It's sharing with anyone that wants to listen.
Our clients love that too, man. I always tell people what you just to kind of go back and taking a class every 2 months. Whenever I go teach, I always tell people, man, I'm like, post on your Facebook page that you're here learning. Your clients love to hear that stuff. They love, and they're like, whatever you learn, can you try it on me today? Right. Hoping
Yeah.
that we have like you said, hoping that we now have another superpower.
Yeah. So then that brings up the question I want to ask you about your superpowers. Your ability to be the pain detective.
Hmm.
Um, do you feel like that it came naturally to you, or it was something that evolved over time?
I think it's just something that evolved over time. It would definitely, it's practice, right? How'd you get to Carnegie Hall?
Yeah.
You have to practice to get there. And I know I equate a lot of this stuff to music, but playing scales all day with my bass teacher, all different types of scales, all different types of keys, all different types of modes and modulations and doing them until I'm blue in the face, so that when I go to play a tune and I want to take a solo, it just naturally then comes out of you. And I always look at massage therapy the same way. You just got to keep practicing until one day it finally just naturally comes out of you. And this episode that we're doing tonight is going to tie in so well to this next episode we're going to record next time about weaknesses and techniques and modalities.
Yeah. So that's a plug to stay tuned and watch for the next episode 42 of Ben and Ace
Yeah,
questions we ask.
that's
Um,
right.
so I want to maybe brainstorm what could be a couple of other possible superpowers that we could have. Um, and I'm going to throw out. So you talked about touch, which is, I think we overlook that in general as
Right.
massage therapists, but maybe having a calming presence, because you probably have noticed when someone is amped up, you get amped up. But I think we as massage therapists, most most massage therapists I've been to have a calm demeanor. And I
Right.
don't know where we learn that, where we get that, but I think it's helpful to bring people into the state of listening to their bodies.
Sure. You never know how someone's going to come into your practice. And one of my second to last client of the night, she's been a lifer. She's been seeing me forever, and she came in tonight. She was 15 minutes late to her appointment. She's never late, 15 minutes late. And she came in, she's like, don't even ask how I am. I'm really stressed out, and kind of just really was just down and out. And I just listened to her and remain calm. She's like, I'm sorry I'm late. And the first thing I did when she said, I'm sorry I'm late, I made a joke. I said late. I said, her appointment was at 5:15. She arrived at 5:30. I said, I had you on at 4 o'clock tonight. I said, you're already 90 minutes late to your appointment. But I said, don't worry. I said, I'm still gonna work on you tonight and got plenty of time for you. Because I wanted her to know that I in a way heard her apology, wasn't upset about her being late, because she's never late, made a joke about it, but also just kind of just told her in a joking way that I'm still gonna like spend time with her and help her, feel better. And her whole demeanor changed, and everything that she came in with just went away immediately. Right.
Yeah,
So such a
that's a
cool superpower that we have, and the ability to like let someone get it out, change their tune within a few minutes, and then get them on board for what we're gonna do.
that's a fantastic superpower. And we don't always know what's going on in people's lives. They tell us, "Oh, I'm
Right.
late. Don't even talk to me about why I'm late."
Yeah.
But there could be more going on in their lives that they don't tell us.
Right.
And that ability to let people get into that calm state to be able to receive the work, I mean, I think that's a huge superpower. On the way down to our Oklahoma City workshop a couple weekends ago, I decided to start in on a book that I've been wanting to read for a long time. You may or may not have heard of it. It's called The Body Keeps the Score.
Yeah.
Have you heard of this book?
Sure have.
Have you read it?
I have not.
Okay. It's an interesting book, and I'm not going to talk too much about it, but it talks about trauma and how trauma um, displays in people differently. And as I'm reading the book, it talks about some pretty severe trauma. So like trauma that people would experience in say soldiers might experience in war, or other things that I won't get into, some other things that they talked about, but it's serious trauma. But I thought about this a little bit, and I'm like, what about, I'm going to call them mini traumas. So what about when your client's on their way to your office and they get cut off in traffic, and
Mm.
maybe they almost have to swerve off the road? It's pretty, a pretty big event, and they show up to your office and they are shaken up. So
Yeah.
I call that a mini trauma. How do, and that lends back into what you were talking about, getting people in that calm state, letting them know that, hey, yeah, all that happened, but you're here now. Take a deep breath. We're gonna work on you still. You're okay.
Yeah, totally. And like everything's gonna be okay. And yeah, or I hit every traffic light, and oh my God, there was construction and traffic, and I'm sorry that I'm a couple minutes late. And I get it. And this podcast is not about policies and procedures. We've talked about some of that stuff before, but picking and choosing your battles, man. These people that we're talking about that have been seeing us forever, and that whole idea of micro traumas that you're bringing up. And what am I going to say to somebody, that's been seeing me for 15 years, that comes in 15 minutes late, all jacked up? Well, too bad. I just don't have any time to work on you tonight. So thanks for coming in. I'll see you on the next session. Talk about a micro trauma. There's just another micro trauma to their day. You as the therapist, are exhibiting your power to say, see you in 4 weeks. You've biffed your appointment tonight. And man, that's just not me. It's just not me.
Yeah. So a
Not you
superpower,
either.
yeah, a superpower could just be just being a good human being.
Yeah, like compassion, man. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
And yeah, like because I'm at the end of the day, I'm human too. You're human too. And the world could be exploding all around you or I, and we might have that time where we have to run late for an appointment. I run late for seeing my clients, accidentally, very rare, but I don't want the massage police to get freaked out, but I've had my moments of, things have come up. And
Happens to everybody.
yeah, I got a client sitting on my office, and I'm like, had something come up with my son, and I'm running from point A to point B, texting them, please wait for me. I'm really sorry. And when you give, you get it back.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
And that's definitely a superpower.
Well, how about this for a superpower? We talked about touch, but what about precision in touch? So the ability to identify not just the structures underneath, but with precision. So say not just the transverse process, but the articular pillar of the transverse process. Like being
Yeah.
able to get precise with your touch.
Absolutely. And that just kind of goes back to like just hours and hours of just practice and skill and hand placement that I think is like so important. I know I think a while back our good friend Walt Fritz posed the question, do anatomical landmarks really matter when you're working on somebody? That was his question that he asked people on the internet. And I thought it was fascinating. It was very divided on how people sort of responded. And I don't know. I think precision is super, super important, right? To land where you need to land. I'll quote Eric Stevenson, right? How you land on somebody. I know Eric talked about that when I heard him lecture a few years ago.
Yeah.
And what you're feeling or what you think you're feeling, right? Because what happens when you're working along that tissue and all of a sudden there's just something above and beyond than a bony landmark, an articular pillar, or a transverse process, or something along those lines. And maybe you're feeling a cyst, or maybe you're feeling a lipoma, or maybe you're feeling just a very abnormal palpatory feel. You have to know what that is.
I think one of the benefits to precision is the ability to replicate what you've done in the past. If you're making your notes and letting yourself know where you worked and why you worked and giving yourself that landmark, like, hey, we worked here, that gives you a place to start
Yeah,
specifically. It doesn't mean that that's where the problem's going to be at the next time, but it gives you a precise starting point. And,
absolutely.
if you ever taken any classes from Doug Nelson and the precision neuromuscular therapy team, they are all about precision. And
Yeah.
I kind of sit the fence on, I'm kind of a little bit with Fritz and Walt Fritz and a little bit on the other side. I can see arguments for both.
Yeah, I can too. But man, I don't know. I'm a believer in precision and where things should land, how they should land, and what sort of feedback that's potentially giving you.
Yeah, and so then the question is, then it becomes you're just working on somebody or you're working with somebody. Because in the world of Walt Fritz, you're going to find those structures specifically, but you're going to solicit feedback from the person you're working with to guide you and say, is this the spot? Do I need to
Right.
move a millimeter higher, lower? Do I need to use less pressure, more pressure?
Yeah.
Does this feel safe? Does this feel related? Does this feel familiar? Does this feel all the things that I love to learn from Walt Fritz.
Right.
He's great.
Yeah, me too. And one thing, and again, here we are getting off the rails again, but
What we do.
I doesn't matter. The general public, right, when having those therapeutic dialogues, it's hard. It's still I find that those therapeutic dialogues can be still difficult. They sound good on paper, right? They sound good to talk about in a classroom with other professionals, but real life doesn't always lend to that because our clients don't necessarily always know either what should happen next, right? Because then it becomes the game of, right, how does this feel? Does this feel, I always say, therapeutically tolerable or therapeutically valuable? Or what happens if I do this or do that? And sometimes people are like, well, you can go more or you can really crank on that, and they've kind of lost that sort of dialogue a little bit. So at the end of the day, it can certainly be a superhero a superpower to educate your client on how this should go and start to get them out of this mindset a little bit and the traditional mindset that not all but many clients have.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. But also the superpower of inviting them to be part of the treatment and not just expecting someone to just magically touch a spot and for it to go away. And for some people, they don't they don't have that awareness. And how do they move into uh, therapeutic results if they don't have the awareness in their body? So then you may need to work with them 3, 4, 5 times to teach them what that awareness feels like before you can get into the actual therapy. Those are just some,
Yeah.
I call it word vomit sometimes, but those are
Well,
those are my thoughts.
so many people come to us. Let's say, let's just boil it down. Let's say there's two different types of clients. So let's be really black and white here.
Okay.
So there's two different types of clients. Let's just say there's only two. And you have one type of client that's been referred to you word of mouth. They're already married to you. So Ben Stone can walk in the room, hit him across the toe with a hammer, and they're going to be like, "Oh my God, that was the best thing ever. You helped me so much." Right? They're already engaged because they've had 20 different people tell them that they should be going to see Ben Stone for 5 years, and they finally called you about their 7 year shoulder problem. You walked in, you hit them across the head. They're like, "Oh my God, that was the best thing ever." Right? You really don't do that, but you get my point.
Yes.
But here's the interesting client to me. The interesting client to me is the client that hasn't been referred to you. That's a cold call. There's no relationship there. You're at a complete, you're on the bottom of the ladder with these people. Now, I've personally found over the years that those clients aren't my clients. That historically, those clients, you know, that relationship is a lot harder to build. And, but I've changed my mindset a little bit. So I don't get a lot of cold calls at this point, but I have been getting some here and there. But so a year ago and beyond, I would tell these people, "I'm sorry, my schedule's full." But now I'm starting to take cold calls on again because I want to see, right? I want to see if I can turn these people around because their backgrounds, they've been trained, they've already been trained by some other health professional to not be listened to not take part in their therapy, right? To be controlled, to already have this educated that education that more is more. And now I've got to turn all this around. So I had a new client the other day, and there was zero relationship there. Cold call. She came in, goes and gets body work all the time. She's a body work junkie. Okay. And I did her history and intake, which was already mind blowing because she walked in my room and was like, "Do you want me on my back or my stomach?" Like right away. Right. And I said, "Well, I want to chat with you. I want to get to know you." Now, I've already prepped them at the phone call and the email that this is going to happen, but again, trained.
Yeah.
So, get her history. Then I take her through an assessment. Nobody's ever done that with her before. So now the dialogue's opening up. And then I give a little speech before they get on the table, right? After we've done their history, they've done their assessment, and then I give them a speech. "Hey, we're a team. This is how, we want to stay on this level of therapeutically valuable, therapeutically tolerable. And you may feel things that because there's, as Whitney Lowe says, issues in the tissue, but we want to make sure that's within your tolerance." And I always make a little joke. So if you're starting to go blind and you can't feel your hands anymore, we've gone too far. So anyway, get her on the table, work on her. I'm getting into what we're calling these Walt Fritz dialogue things. And the whole time in my head, I'm going, "Man, I don't know if this person likes me or can't stand me at this point." She got off the table because, again, cold call people I historically have struck out with. She got off the table. She said, "Man, I have never had therapy like that in my life. I can't wait to come back. Are you taking new clients because my husband really needs to see you too?" And what a win. What a win. And I say this not to brag, but I say this because, man, what I think it's a superpower to the type of client that you get in your office. It can go one of two different ways. And cold call clients, man, I think it is a superpower to get them on board with what you're doing.
That's so true. And it just goes to show how complicated the therapeutic alliance is and how many levels there are to get somebody on board to be able to receive therapy and almost have to retrain them. I talk about it as part of I have to train you how I'm going to work on you, but you also have to train me on how to work with you. So, like you
Yeah.
said, it's a team effort, and there's everyone does it differently. But it's so important, isn't it?
Patient psychology is an art in of itself, and learning how to navigate how people talk to you, what they say to you, and personalities, and how to navigate all of those sort of complicated and not so complicated dialogues that we have with people on a daily basis. That is a complete art. And like you said earlier, does that come naturally or is that learned over time?
That's a good question. And how did you discover that this was a superpower for you? Say, because I feel like I'm pretty good at this. I could always get better, but that
Yeah.
therapeutic alliance, getting people in the calm state, talking them through what we're going to do, why we're going to do it, what the outcomes we can expect are. But how do you discover it? Does someone tell you, or is that something you discover on your own?
I don't know, man. I think a lot of it's just time, right? I think a lot of it's time. I mean, it was education too, right? I mean, learning. I learned from a chiropractor a long time ago. First chiropractor I ever worked with. He used to talk to me how to have dialogues with patients and how to navigate. If they say this, you should say this. If they say this, you should say this, and always giving me scenarios. And it's wild. There's patterns, there's pain patterns, right? There's strain patterns and pain patterns that we talked about all the time. But there's also patterns with how clients interact with you, the professional.
Yeah, and we can work with the touch, we can work with the sensations, but then also we've got the things that we kind of talked about earlier, the trauma, the thoughts, the feelings, and the emotions that are all embedded deeper into the person. That I mean, how do you I don't know, how do you get to those? And I'm sure there's people who have stories on how you get to that, but um,
Right.
I'm more of a manual therapist than a mental health therapist, so I try to stick to that realm.
Are we though? I mean, are we really massage therapists or are we behavioral health therapists?
I mean, I would call us good listeners.
That's right.
And isn't that what a good mental health therapist does is listens and just
Yeah.
prompts you in certain ways to get you to think more about I don't know.
100%.
Yeah.
Well, this is fun, Ben. We could talk about this all night.
I I love this stuff and I can't wait to get into episode 42.
I can't wait either. It's coming up next week. I think that's going to be one of my favorite questions that we've asked so far. I was excited when you posted that today, so I'm looking forward to diving into that next week.
Yeah, awesome. Well, tell me what's a big takeaway? What what did you take away from this episode so far the most?
Oh man, multiple superpowers. And going back to one of our earlier episodes, right? The least of them is touch, right? But I don't know. I think that we shouldn't take our art of touch for, I don't think we should minimize that just because it's so normal for us. I tell the same story. I've told the same story for 5 years in my lectures. And we talk about ART, asymmetry, restriction of motion, tissue texture abnormality. So when we get to the T for tissue texture abnormality, I go into this dialogue and I put on a little act about how we're working on somebody and we're going along their tissues and all of a sudden we feel something, and that's when their eye opens and they say, "What is that?" And then you say, "I don't know," and then you start doing what you do best as a therapist, whatever you want to add to it, movement enhancers, contract, whatever you want to do, and then something changes, and they say, "Oh man, did you feel that? That feels so much better." And then I say, "I did." And then I end it with, "And then your superhero cape is flowing in the wind." So here
That
we
is
are. That's
so
that's our
true.
superpower. And then you lean into them and you say, "My price just went up today."
I love it.
What was your takeaway, buddy?
You know, I think as I'm contemplating it, and you mentioned it, we take for granted the things like touch. But what's wrong with celebrating those things and being proud of the normalcy that it is? Like, we think every massage therapist has good touch, but that is not the case. I've been to some massage therapists that have no concept of touch. And
Yeah.
so to have that sense of touch and just take it for granted, I think we need to celebrate that as massage therapists. And then also thinking about how do we improve the stuff that we feel weaker at? And didn't we that's part of the question for next time, right? I forget what the question was, but I think we
Yeah,
did
that's
talk
part of
about
it. It's
something
part of
about
it.
what are our weaknesses and that kind of thing. So how do we improve some of those superpowers that need some work? Like some of those oh those superheroes that haven't quite figured out how to use their superpowers yet, and to see them all like
Right.
fumbling over themselves trying to run fast and they trip. And so my thought is, and I don't know how to do this yet, but how do we learn to improve what we don't even know we need improvement on? How do we find our blind spots and how do we improve on them? That could be a whole nother episode right there.
Well, I think next week's episode is going to be about 2.5 hours long. So
We'll
to
have
be
to.
to be continued. All these questions that you have right now.
That'll be great. I can't wait. So Nate, we have this little Facebook page called Ben and Nate's Questions We Ask Massage Therapists on the Internet. What can people do who like the show? How can they support what we do?
Answer those questions. If you answer those questions, it helps Ben and I create awesome dialogue. This awesome dialogue that you guys hear every week or so. So just keep answering. And if you want to Venmo Ben and Nate's questions that we ask people on the internet, be a sponsor, support us. We'll take it.
We will take it. Cup of
I don't even
coffee,
know what we'd
whatever.
buy, Ben. I just threw it out there, but what would
Cup
we
of
buy?
coffee. You know.
Cup of coffee.
Yeah.
Done.
Yeah. Man, I love when people respond. And we've never really talked about, are we going to name who responds? Are we going to talk about their names, or are we just going to talk about the response? So if you're listening to this episode and you respond to one of the questions, just go ahead and put in there like, hey, mention my name on your next episode, and we will gladly do that.
Listen, Ben, for as famous as you and I have gotten from this podcast, do we even dare make somebody else famous? Because I mean, the burden of fame has been pretty difficult.
It rubs off pretty quickly, doesn't it?
That's right. Hey, Ben, I'm looking forward to seeing you next week for episode 42.
42. We want to see all of you there. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the future.
Bye-bye.